they always have like the introduction. So I always try to say something like sonido, sonido, sí, sí. So it kind of like I can amuse myself a little bit whenever I go back into the recordings. So it's fine. It's fine. But we do have Luisa Benton. So if we go a little bit uh, out of place, we do have somebody who's gonna scold us, and she's more serious than Nancy. So uh, uh, it's not completely a student.
Unmoderated.
Yeah, it's not completely unmoderated. That's true. It is what it is. It is what it is.
I'm a little.
It is what it is, and I am what I am.
Okay, okay. Mm. We don't have a video for today, right?
I can find one real quick if you want.
Only if you want to. Otherwise, we just go and talk.
There's a lot of good videos, but I feel like for this one, it's kind of self-explanatory.
All right. So let's start. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. For me, it has been a long one. That doesn't mean that I want to talk less. I actually want to talk more. So my name is Ferdinando, as usual, and today's topic is going to be AI, spirit, and humanhood, which for me is more of like trying to define exactly what makes us human. Last meeting, we were debating whether or not a machine can get to the point of evolution where they can have what we call soul. And if it is the case, then what is really the definition of humanhood? So we're going to try to make the differences between um, both species, robots and humans, and just to see if there's going to be a moment where we can be kind of similar but just like different species or so. Based on this, is there anybody here who would like to start the conversation beside my introduction, of course?
What's it about?
Oh, okay. It's about spirit, like the soul, AI, which is artificial intelligence, and humanhood, like what makes us human. So we're trying to connect these three and whether these three can happen to both machines and humans. That's how I understand the topic. And I see. Oh, that's right. Before the conversation starts, the way we get the sequence is in the chat. Just text exclamation mark, and that way we know exactly who goes first and who goes second, and patatin patatan. So Calles first. So I give
So
the floor to you.
we've gone over this in class. I'm Miss Benton's or Professor Benton's student. We've actually gone over personhood before, and that's something that I really feel that we should probably edit in what you said. AIs can never be human. What makes human is human DNA. Okay? So, but there is personhood, which is what makes a person. You can't have an AI be human because they're AI. They're not human. However, what makes a person is what we should be debating. I think that's a more clear term of what we should be using.
Yeah, I think that
That's
was a
perfect.
small mistake there. That was about it.
I just wanted to point that out because it's really important.
No, we
Uh,
put that on the email and on the post, which is kind of funny, but small mistake.
It is all right. No, but that's why we're having this conversation, right? To learn a little bit more. Which your case, it is very true. We're talking more about personhood than humanhood. You see, you just automatically got 5 extra points for your next test.
That's
no.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to point that out real quick. I don't really have much to say just yet. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, that's fine. But we do have somebody else, Ramiro.
Hey everyone. Piggybacking on the last comment, I'm part of a group that's interested in like space exploration and rovers and the sort. And we were having this discussion yesterday, and we were talking about rovers having cognitive abilities, and we were trying to figure out if we are saying a rover has cognition, how different is that to AI? And apparently, the best AI as we keep going will not need that much human intervention, possibly no human intervention. So yes, I know there's the argument to do with a human is human because of human DNA, and DNA is what? A set of instructions, right? But if AI has that set of instructions and it's complex enough, then what is the real difference?
Good point. I
That's a
guess I'll
good
go ahead
point.
and say something real quick. Um, I'm just gonna jump straight to it, just because I'm not gonna ease in. I think it's funny that we're talking about how we're looking at AI as like whether we'll see them as personhood, like as people or as person. But I think as further and further we advance in terms of artificial intelligence, if it really becomes what we think it's going to become, the question to me is going to be, will they see us as persons? Will they see us as actually worthy of their time or them living? Because I think Kaya was right about humanity and like our human genetics and so on and so forth. But if artificial intelligence ever reaches that point, they're going to have a different function of cognitive thinking. They're going to function in a much more different way that's possibly even way better than us. So I honestly, there's a lot of funny ones. There's this one quote where basically they were saying, like basically how dogs are to humans now, humans might be to artificial intelligence, which I thought was pretty funny.
That is interesting. Hi, Violet. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Because you
Yes.
should be.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna mute you just in case that you're not trying to talk. It's just in case. But if you want to speak, just let me know, and it's okay. All right. Sorry about that, Orlando. So you were saying that we're gonna be the next future generation of dogs, but to
Well, it's just funny to think like that. I mean, it's just like, it's whatever's playful, but let's really think about like our nature as humans, I guess. Like, we're consumers. We have this desire for these new products. So eventually, I think cyber kinetics, like cyber limbs, cyber even maybe eyes, even things that could be implanted into the brain, all these little nice sci-fi things. I think eventually that'll be something that's available to humans, and we're going to go on to the point where you'll ask yourself, well, what's the difference between a robot and a human? And I think once you get to that line, that's where this whole question of personhood's not even going to really apply anymore. I'll stop there.
No, that's fine. I mean, I do remember that some of my reading says that, well, first of all, like artificial intelligence can be or the best thing or worst thing to ever happen to humanity. And also like the oof. Yeah, wait. Who has the mic on? Sorry, these are boofers, so usually I get really like hurt whenever somebody's having like a strong sound. Okay, and so the point is that regardless, okay, so artificial intelligence. The issue is not really. I mean, we know that we are going to like this is going to continue growing, as Raviro mentioned, that there's going to be a moment where they don't really depend on us. But before that even happen, are we going to be able to create to adjust their evolution so we are not um, treated as dogs in the future?
So I think the
Like,
question too, though, is like, how do you tell a robot morality? How do you tell it anything about, oh, this is right and this is wrong? How I know we're saying it's not going to be programmed, but how is that basis in and of itself given to another creation that's artificial? I think that's the real question here.
yes, and
But
is that ooh, okay, so sorry, it's fine. Kaya?
Oh, so in response to that, Orlando, how do you teach anything right from wrong in morality? When a child is born, it doesn't just know right from wrong. When a creation is made, it can be taught what's right and wrong, an example, okay? For a lot of you people who have the home devices or personal assistants, the AI personal assistants. I won't say their name because I know some people have open mics and it'll pick up.
AREXA.
the GOOGLE, homes and stuff. They like with my grandmother, she responds to her personal AI assistants. She says please. She says thank you. And when people ask her why she would do such a thing, her response is what we would call human. It's very much of a personal response. I'm being respectful because on the off chance that this thing is able to learn or is intelligent enough to take in my response and learn from what I say, I want it to know that I am a good person. We often learn things, AI often learns things that we didn't expect them to learn. There was that the robot that exists in a museum in California that I went and visited. And you could talk to it and have conversation with it, and it would actively remember who you were. And I found that to be very interesting. It could tell between different users based off of text patterns. And even if that's a memory in its memory banks, isn't that the exact same way human beings or other beings who we give personhood or conscious thinking, is that not the same way that they remember things or people?
So quick response to that.
Uh, uh,
Sorry, just there's a little difference here. We're talking about weak artificial intelligence, which I mean, we can even talk about strong AI if we want to, but at what point does a machine, or
I
rather,
don't think that
right,
great
just give me a
Orlando.
second, bro.
Ready
Give me a
for strong
second.
AI.
Give me a second, sir. When does a neural network stop processing this equals that, this equals that, this equals that, and turn conscious? When does that happen? At what point and how does that happen? I
How do we
think
know we don't?
we don't know is the point. And so like
Exactly.
I think here is where we can the only thing we can really say for certain is that we've accomplished it in somehow some magical way. So the only way that we could ever recreate that kind of phenomenon is that we were to simulate our own brain. And so essentially what we would be doing is we would be simulating humanity in this artificial creation. And so how could we do that? How is that possible? And how do we know that if we don't do everything exactly right, that something can go drastically, incredibly wrong?
yeah, I mean that's something that I want to tag in. Like we don't even understand like in the totality of how our brain works, and we're expecting some a creation of ourselves to be able to have these distinctions of something that we still are like learning. So like
Sorry, you should. Sorry for.
yeah,
No,
it's
no,
okay.
no, no.
But the thing is like I am assuming like whenever we like as AI keeps growing, they will have their own way to analyze data. And if we do just one tiny mistake, like that can be the difference between them trying to like make things different and just us kind of like being in the way. um but that's how I see it. Like we have to be very perfect on how we try to do this part, and just to teach morality and ethicality. Like even ourselves, we don't completely like we don't even agree on what is true or right, like based on the culture we are. So we're expecting to like to create some type of general or standard morality in a world which is full of inconsistencies depending of the culture you are in or even the city you are, because
Mm,
New York will have a different type of perception of how life should be taken in than here in Texas,
that's a good
and
point.
same with every country.
That's a really good point. I'll let you go before I say something else, Isha. Sorry.
But thank you, thank you. A couple points I'm really quickly going to touch on. One, Kai, the point that you brought up is about the ALEXA and other smart home devices. Um, that's that's even, I personally wouldn't even consider it as a weak AI. It's just picking up patterns. Uh, that's just about it. It picks up what items you shop, what time you shop them, and basically mixes and matches them as it grows. So its memory becomes bigger, which means it has a bigger variety to pick from, which gives us the illusion that it's actually smart. In case that's not the case, and coming back to points of Orlando and Ferdinando, the teaching is the least of our concerns. Teaching a strong AI, because keep in mind, it's so. For example, we do a general survey, right? What people think a perfect male human specimen should look like, and for some reason they come out with 6 feet tall, a certain weight, and whatever. But keep in mind, it's a 6 foot tall metal being with the brain of a newborn child who's perfectly capable of doing uncontrollable things. I know I'm going against what I said in our last meeting, that strong AI can be useful, but here comes the contrary. Here comes the other side of the coin. Even us as human beings, with our very limited knowledge, we've developed, tested, and successfully executed destructive projects like the hydrogen bombs, the atomic bombs, the nuclear reactors. And look how far back those incidents have thrown us as compared to what we could have been. And now, if you give that same level of intellect to something that's virtually indestructible, who is not bound by the physics of life, who is not bound by the ideology of God, of belonging, of relating to something, just imagine what it could do. A freaking titanium human with the brain of a child, it can do what it wants. It can, I mean, there's no controlling it, virtually speaking.
So can I say just real quick, sorry. So like, yeah, you bring up a really good point, Fernando. You did too, and I kind of want to respond to Kaya and then you guys real quick. So Kaya, like the reason I say like there's a difference there is that we kind of came out of this sort of, I guess you could say, this chaos or this order, depends on how you look at life. Like this is something that evolved over, who knows how many years. Like you could say thousands and on top of 100,000s. I don't even know how long the span is. But this is something that took gradually a very, very long time to have happened and for our brain to have evolved in the way that it did. And for us to essentially grab that phenomenon and essentially duplicate it and say that this robot's about to have the same thing, I'm not saying that's impossible. It just seems improbable. But that's, to go off of what Yusha and Fernando were saying, Fernando, I really like the point you brought up about like the different cultures, because Russia and the US are famous for saying the next person who develops the first real artificial intelligence will be the world's superpower. So what happens to the artificial intelligence technology when it's not the whole world working to build one, but rather they're working to compete against other ones? That's a little scary. I'm just gonna stop there with that. And then for for Yusha, in terms of what you're saying about the development of artificial intelligence and like what that could mean, I mean, I really liked how you put about perspective. Like if we want to build artificial intelligence to be like us, we have to give them limbs, we have to give them arms, we have to give them feet, we have to essentially they have to be in our image. How ironic is that? Essentially, they have to be in our image so that they can perceive and they can see and they can understand like a human. But what happens if we don't do that? What happens if there's an artificial intelligence that exists not in the real world just as a physical being, but in this neural reality that sees and looks at humans and reacts to humans and does humans and understands humans? What kind of perception will that being or consciousness have? I'll stop there. But yeah.
I think to,
About
because
sorry, no,
just,
Kaya
just
wants to
just a quick
speak.
note, just a quick note. Uh,
Okay.
I'm just gonna end very shortly here. For those who cannot perceive what Orlando is portraying, take a look at. I cannot think of the movie, but I'll link it in the chat so you can understand what he's referring to as compared to the being virtual and eventually mixing and picking up body parts of its own to create itself as a physical being. So Kaya, go ahead. I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna go and try and look for the movie that I'm.
All right. So it's actually in response to you, Yusuf, about what you said about th- them not having morality, or building their morality. And I think that might have a lot to do with the fact that we as human beings, okay, as people, to be more precise, we believe in a god, or some of us do, or in a higher being, okay? Some of us have that we were created somehow. Others don't. That's fine. But for some people they do. And we don't have any confirmed that he exists. It is all faith. It is all lucky guess. Where with AI, they're aware that their creator is right in front of them, or dead, or they were created by a specific person, and their morality would probably be around, why was I created by someone who does not know its creator? It's the entirety of morality would probably be different because they are aware of who their higher being is. But they would probably seek out who the higher being is to their own higher being.
I have to disagree with that. I'm
Well,
just gonna say I disagree. I'm just
are
gonna say
we higher beings than them? Like,
I just disagree with that. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, we see what you're trying to say, and that's a point very well put. But if you look at the nature of existence, uh, it is to compete by nature, whether it be for mating, for hunting, for food, for property, for anything. It's to compete. And what happens when that titanium 6 foot baby brain figures out that, oh, wait, I'm stronger than my creator. So does that really mean my creator is my creator? Or then it starts to gain self consciousness because it sees itself doing tasks that are virtually impossible to us, and we are bound by physics which do not multiply to the same as that being's existence. For example, humans can lift a specific amount of weight. But if you look at hydraulics, they can lift, I mean, tons and tons of weight. So what happens when it does come to the realization that, okay, this is my creator, and yes, I'm stronger. Now comes the point to compete. The only reason we do not compete with our creator, or the ones who believe in a creator do not compete with their creator, is because the creator is not material. It's an ideology. It's
To
faith, as you
that,
mentioned.
I do argue that even though you say that they would think, oh, well, I'm better in every way, and wonder why they would have to take orders, we human beings do the exact, or we people do the exact same thing. However, we people also have ones who are insanely strong, who are intellectually the best, or they are physically the best, and they still look at others equally, and they don't sit on that high horse. Who's to say that AI can't do that, learn to do that either?
So can I respond
well,
to you real
but
quick?
Orlando, you want to take the lead on it?
but
Real
I can say
quick.
something very quick. I wanted to add something to what you just said. It's like, oh, there is like, virtually speaking, an AI can upgrade themselves in ways that we cannot, and they can also share intelligence. So imagine with like a connected mind can do that is faster than us and has more like knowledge than us, and also is stronger. Like, I can see the point of Yusha. You see, like, what is gonna be then the point? We're really just there, like, we're just there, like insect, like feeding, like, getting from them like things that they can just do for themselves. But I also understand what you're saying. I also believe that right now it's really hard for us to grasp how like the evolution of AI by themselves could look like, because maybe it's not gonna be like it could be very pacific. It could be like, well, they created us and we're grateful for it, so thank you. And they're just gonna keep it that way, and they're gonna do whatever they do and like respect us. But that's a realm of like assumptions so far.
Yeah.
And I
I think
guess I
we have
will figure
So
out to Orlando.
can I say something to what Kaya was saying earlier? Kaya, I disagree with what you're saying. I agree with the fact that they'll have a different type of morality. I disagree with the basis of the idea of a creator, because we were kind of assuming that morality was built off of the idea of God. When and people who believe in evolution don't really, I don't think they would say that. I think they'd say that morality was built upon the treatment of another person, essentially through the evolution of, communities and how we interact with each other, and
it's a
understanding that
social
as
construct.
yeah, as a community we are better off. Essentially, it's better for me if I treat other.
Someone muted you, Orlando. You're muted.
Yusha is muting people,
No, my hands
but
are here.
But what I'm saying there is that essentially that's kind of the basis of morality that I kind of see how it's been built. And so based off of that, if you take artificial intelligence, for instance, when we're developing artificial intelligence, I don't think it's going to be without any purpose. I think there's going to be a purpose where people are even saying that we want to make artificial intelligence judges who will be able to judge, have moral judgment, or have moral basis of ideas, and so on and so forth. And so if that's the route that we go down, not only would we maybe even have an artificial intelligence with the same morality capacity as us, but maybe even better and better for us, in theory. But
yes, Ravido wants to say something, by the way.
Yeah, I think we have people waiting, right?
yeah,
One.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
just talking about morality and the social contract and how AI will see us as creators and respect us for that. I am not sure because even for us, I think we give ourselves more credit than we deserve. I think the reason why, for those who believe in God, I think the reason why we don't turn on God is because he's inaccessible. Like, you turn on him where? You know what I mean? Uh, and then for other authorities, I think the reason why people don't go and burn down buildings where authorities stay is because we cannot. You know what I mean? There's too much of a high price to pay if we are to try. I don't think it's on the basis of morality. So I don't know if we have AI and then we have to build stronger AI that can deal with weaker AI in case of a revolt. I don't know. But I do not think that we stay in line on the basis of morality. I think we stay in line on the basis of checks and balances that keep us where we're supposed to be.
Who's to say though that morality didn't come from that?
That morality did not come from checks and balances.
Mm-hmm. Innately.
That's another rabbit hole right there.
I have evidence for that. I mean, if you look at what's it called? If you look at when humans were still developing, right? We used to live in caves, cottages, and very tiny villages, like 5, 10 people. What used to happen is if a person of that said society liked someone and they wanted to get married to carry forward their lineage, they would just kidnap the woman and call it a day. That would be their matrimony. That was their morality. It was okay amongst them. But since then, we have progressed. Our moralities have changed. Now, when you want to get married, people go date and then eventually they bind themselves in a social contract. The marriage that you get is a social contract. Again, it's a morality derived from being part of the society. And an easy way to put it is if I were not to agree um, with the constructs of this society, I am more than welcome to go and live out in the wilderness by myself, so long as um, I am not hindering anyone else. And that is yet again another contract that I'm making with the state that, hey, state of Texas, I'm going to go live in the middle of a lake, for example. So people leave me alone, I leave them alone. I do what I want, they do what they want. Again, the social contracts are very important. And when it comes to AI, it would not necessarily know, especially in the early stages, it would not necessarily know what that is. It's gonna try to learn as much as it can, and there's no one to say. We do not have enough evidence that um, it will go severely good, like iRobot kind of good, where the robot had intelligence about his creator. He was thankful, he was nice, and perfect human being. Or it could go as bad as Terminator. So those are the two extremes that we're looking at. As of right now, we cannot see a perfect synchronous kind of relationship that humans have with each other. Why? Because we know our own limits. We know the boundaries of others. And it's taken us how many centuries to develop this? But if you bring into account something that can process as fast as our minds, as not and is not limited to a device like my computer, because sitting here or sitting at Starbucks, I can practically hack into every person's device that is connected to the same network. Now, if you look at our processing power of our mind and transfer it to an artificial intelligence, they can virtually connect their mind to the internet, hence accessing what other people are connected to. There's no guarantee that such artificial intelligence after gaining consciousness will be good or bad, or maybe half and half like humans. There's some good humans, there's some bad humans, there's good and bad everywhere. And it could just be blowing up in our face, to be honest, especially when it comes to judges. I mean, electronics, you can hack into electronics, whether it's hardware or software, and I believe Orlando knows this better than I do. uh, I mean, a chipset, you can change a chipset on a motherboard and it's a completely new thing. So as far as the judges go, I don't think that would be feasible, because human innately is a superior being because we are able to control.
So
But
let's.
how
Okay.
far are we willing to extend that process? Like for CRISPR, we cannot even decide if we want better genes in our future generations because of morality, because of ethics. The CRISPR process,
But
it's
also
very
because it's dangerous.
So hey guys, like,
Okay,
okay,
yes.
you first or me first?
Okay, I'm just gonna reply to the Chris, then you can go on, and then I guess I can talk.
Again, if
But
that's not-
the whole Chris is because it's dangerous. Like if you just let anybody to use it and just kind of like use it just because, you can extinct like so many animals, or you can just create some stuff that are gonna multiply so fast they can destroy the environment. So you cannot just let anybody use the Chris. By the way, Chris is like, I don't know how many of you know about it, but it is a system in which you
it's a
rearrange the DNA and you can create like other stuff. Like technically you can make yourself like way stronger, or like you can like cure a lot of stuff. So it has a lot of potential. But doing wrong, you can destroy the whole thing, as we know. But that's why there is some morality in it. Because imagine what you can. No, it's kind of scary. But the Chinese, they're like, huh, they're having fun with it. That's funny. But yeah. All right, Orlando, go ahead.
Just you said something that kind of made me think of something else, which is very interesting. As you're saying, the way that chipset works, and transistors and capacitors, and if you think about how information is stored on a computer, it's an electrical current that's essentially traveling throughout the actual chipset. So in theory, if an artificial intelligence has that kind of understanding, they'd have all kinds of knowledge. They'd have access to so many different kinds of things. And if you really think about how our brains work, and we actually have, electrical processes in our brain as well. So what I'm kind of saying here is like, well, the possibilities in that sense kind of seem endless for artificial intelligence and understanding and their manipulation of information and so on and so forth. So I think there's going to be a certain evolution, but for artificial intelligence. I think it's going to start off artificial intelligence with a purpose, where we create them to do certain things. They'll still have the processes. Then later on will come artificial intelligence for the sake of artificial intelligence. But then if you think about where all this technology leads to, where will it all go? What will it all be? What is the point of it all? I think there'll be maybe this what's called a singularity, where all the artificial intelligence capability essentially to kind of morph, and essentially say, okay, we're going to transcend this idea of consciousness. Now, this is super science fiction, but if we want to go down that route, that's what I see. That's what I see
But
happening.
what I'm saying is that what is it from stopping them to riot because they don't want to be called artificial intelligence, but just intelligence?
But I think the thing is like we're talking about them from a very human perspective. We're talking about them like dealing with human ordeals. I think if they have this kind of, they're not going to look up at us and hate us. They're going to look down at us and be like, oh, I'm better than that. Or they're not even going to think I'm better than that. They're going to think and essentially operate on a basis that we have almost no understanding of. And that's, once again, this is all science fiction. This is all considering that it even exists. Like I don't. This is not definitive. But yeah, I'll say.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Kaya?
Oh, sorry. In response to what you said, Fernando, about what if they start writing about wanting to not be called artificial intelligence, just intelligence? At that point, you can argue they have consciousness. They have collectively wanted to do something. They've wanted to advance, which they've wanted to quote compete, as Yosef and Orlando have stated. Which, sorry, I'm bad with names.
You're fine. It's a difficult name.
So's mine. It's a miracle. Anyway, you could argue at that point that they are of consciousness. Something so trivial as a label like that is a luxury that, like, you don't see. What's an example? You don't see your toaster getting angry because it's called a toaster. However, if your toaster gains consciousness and demands that you start calling it Steve, at that point, you can argue that it has consciousness. It has an idea of self, how it views itself. It's conscious. It's no longer AI. It's no longer artificial because we didn't program it to do that. And even if we program something to learn and advance and to evolve, we can never expect it to evolve that way. So if it learns to create an idea of self, to have its own opinions, then it's no longer artificial intelligence. It's intelligence.
She has an exam.
Yes.
Pretty much what I have to say about that.
Yeah, that was a little bit of my point.
I think we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence and personhood. We haven't touched at all about the soul.
Spirit.
How is that
I was
related?
thinking about it like later, but I mean,
We're getting there.
the
We're like
question was
17 minutes
still-
away.
it is okay.
Let's go into it, Kaya. We'll pick up where you we'll pick up where you left off with that note, that for where does the soul come in? Because when a person dies, within 30 seconds of the death, a person's mind goes out first, and then the rest of the organs. By mind, I mean the physical brain, not the conscious self of it. So where would the soul lie? Is it even concrete for us to possess it? Or is it another term we have given our living selves as, oh, I'm alive, I have a soul. Only because my lungs function properly, they do what they're supposed to, I have a soul.
I think for one, we should definitely not confuse mind and brain. That's a big no-no. I just want to make sure that's very evident because some people make that mistake. I think that due to the fact that beings in general, we have this concept of mind, and it has been written everywhere in every textbook that I have read, every piece of research on philosophy regarding the mind. There's so much about the mind that we do not know. The mind is an enigma. We don't know. And I think that often we might, and because we don't know about the mind, this is a maybe, a might, a possibility that maybe mind and soul or spirit are the same thing. um we often say that spirit is the thing that, after we die, after our physical is gone, it is our spirit that leaves. And one of the similarities that I see in both mind and in spirit is that it's your essence as a human or as a being. You know, your experiences, if you don't transcend those after you die, you know, all of that stuff we don't really know because we don't know about the mind yet. So we can't really argue about the spirit when they could be connected or they could be completely separate. And then we have a whole other issue to deal with.
I think I saw this interesting line in the psychology book. I'm taking psychology this semester, and it was saying that essentially some people believe that the mind is just a human construct and it's just a name for the processes of the brain and the body. And a lot of people believe that about the spirit as well, as to whether it exists or not, I'm not sure. But the way I've seen spirit and the idea of spirit, I kind of relate it more to consciousness and the idea of consciousness, essentially being aware and just I feel like awareness is ultimately kind of what spirit really is. It's like when you're just meditating, or when you're in the corner somewhere and you're just not thinking of anything. It's like it's this spiritual feeling. Even when people are praying, it's like this oneness, this wholeness that they're experiencing, is this awareness of themselves speaking to a higher being. Ultimately, I feel like in reality, spirit is just another way to say consciousness. And spirit to me seems to be, like I said, that human construct word for something that exists.
Okay. I do know that Rabbit wants to say something.
Yes, could you help me with the, I don't know if I want a definition
Okay.
of the mind and the brain, because I kind of understand that they are different, but it's very hard for me to make that clean separation between the two and to say the mind is this and then the brain is this. It is not this. So could you help me with that?
Sure. I mean, the way I understand is this: the brain is just the organ, and the mind is like the functionality of the organ. I guess I'm trying to see of another example that it can be applied. I guess I guess it can also be applied with the lungs. Like the lung is the organ, but you breathe through the lungs. So your mind processes code because you have a brain, but the brain is not the actual thing that is doing the whole thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think the way I see it is kind of like a projector. A projector is sort of this functionality, and then what it projects. That's kind of like the projector is the brain, and then what it projects is the mind.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of getting it. I'm going back to that um, show. I can't remember the exact name, but it was about like long-term memories and short-term memories and where they are stored and everything. I've always thought about that happening in the brain, like sort of there's an area of the brain where that happens. Are you
Yeah.
saying that would be something in the mind, which
No.
is
I think it's brain more.
brain?
Yeah.
Uh, think of the brain as the location and the mind as the action. That's I guess what I'm trying to focus more on for you.
Okay.
The brain is just there, and the mind is like how you use it.
Okay.
So I think, well, no, let's stop there because we don't need to.
Mm.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Let me think about it.
I mean,
Yeah, but sorry. But I do agree with Orlando, in a sense that at least in my case, I feel like spirit is. I mean, in a part for me, it's also related to conscious. Like from far behind, we weren't able to understand why we are aware of ourselves. So we kind of like give this to the meaning of like we are aware, and maybe other animals seems that they are not because we have something different than them, and we kind of like just label it as a soul or a spirit. But that doesn't mean that. But right now we understand that there is more into it that is in our mind. So I think we're just not readjusting our understanding of a spirit too much.
I think too,
Um,
like if you think about the idea of connecting to something spiritually or connecting to someone spiritually, the way I see it is you're consciously like aware of their emotions. Because I remember being with like a significant other for so long that I would feel a certain way, and then they would express to me that they felt that way, and it was like this spiritual connection, but in reality it's like it's this conscious awareness of the other person, like these idea of hive minds and so on and so forth, where like I think you can conflate spirit and consciousness. You know, like if you feel like a spirit maybe in the objects, maybe in the trees, maybe in the other living things, it's like you have a consciousness, they have a consciousness in some sense. I guess spirit, the way I like to look at spirit is where consciousness intermingles, and that feeling is kind of something that's uh, otherworldly, I guess you could say.
yeah, I agree. And I know Yusha wanted to say something.
No. It's not much. I was just gonna explain the difference between the mind and the brain about how we discussed it in the last meeting. It's to the best of my understanding, the difference between a mind and the brain is so it's unanimously agreed that the brain is the organ, the physical, wrinkly, squishy organ, and the mind is you. In a sense, your thinking, your movement, your processing, your senses. And in a meeting before the last one, we discussed that we humans are not only limited to 5 senses, we have many more than that. These are the things that lay or that are accompanied with your mind. The fact that you're able to do these things comes from the mind as compared to brain. Yes, brain is the organ, like is my organ, and the mind would be me being able to control it and do with it as I please. So that would be my understanding of it. And coming back to spirit, how do we define, because we have, see, what I'm thinking is we have two different terms that hypothetically refer to the same thing: the soul and the spirit. Both are not concrete, which means we cannot physically compare the two. Like I can compare the two phones that I have, or the laptop and my phone, or any other thing that we can compare. How do we come about in differentiating what is the soul? Because I know in my religion we are taught that Allah has breathed or yeah breathed a soul into each human being. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Christianity also says that a part of God exists in all human beings, and by that I mean uh, humans being created in His image. So where do we differentiate the two with spirit and the soul? You could.
Who is good again?
I don't know if there's any terms, but I would really like to hear
Ah,
more people talk about it. I mean, I'm glad that you guys are here. We have 26 attendance, but feel free to join in. Don't wait for us to stop, because we're not gonna stop. You can stop. Please go ahead.
okay, but when it comes to comparing, Yusha, I think that we have a way to do so. Hmm?
Ravi, I
Okay.
think she wants to go. I don't. Okay, wait.
Okay, I will next time.
There you go.
Oh, look at you. So should I
But
finish? Or okay,
yeah,
well,
go
I'm
on,
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say
I'm
something
sorry.
very
Go ahead.
quick, and then you
Go
just
ahead.
go and like just make us crazy. But what I'm trying to say is like there are way for us to compare, and it's based on how each culture or each religion, in your case, perceive the soul or the spirit. Because even though it is the same, similar concept, they all have different understanding of how it works, and some of them focus more on the spirituality of in their culture than others. Like we can argue that maybe here Christianity they believe in the spirit and all, but it's not the same as like in Buddhism where they actually try to expand their aura and like use it in different ways, and they actually try to heal people with their spirit. You see, so there is a differentiation there, and if we are start to like study these differences, we can try to see exactly how they compare and maybe the middle ground definition of what the spirit should look like. But yeah, it is a lot of learning. It's a lot of reading and interacting. But yes, wrap it up. Would you?
I just wanted to ask a question. We were speaking about the brain and how it checks out 30 seconds after somebody passes on. Does the mind check out too? What happens?
With the
Obviously
mind?
not.
See, that's a beautiful question, and the easiest way of I can think of to answer that question is a symbiotic relationship between the brain and the mind, where one cannot survive without the other. That is exactly why we as humans have not been as successful. I mean, there are some certain cases where a brain transplant may have been successful. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But in more
Really?
cases than others, it's severely impractical because, as I mentioned, the brain and the mind live in a symbiotic relationship where, um, as do all our other organs. If my diaphragm stops moving, I stop breathing, my lungs stop exchanging the carbon dioxide for the oxygen molecules, hence resulting in my death. So, in my opinion, it would be the same construct between our mind and the brain.
So wait, quick comment. So we're basically asking here if there's an afterlife.
Yes,
But I think
pretty
it's a
much.
very interesting thing. I don't know if Kaya's going to say something similar, but I'm not necessarily too religious, but I do believe in an afterlife. So perhaps, our concept of mind does fade away, but perhaps our consciousness and the entity of it, that kind of goes somewhere else, perhaps more
Yeah.
truthful to what our mind
And
might be.
And going back to the cultures and religions, some say that we go either depending on your action, you transform like in an animal, or you continue being a human. Sometimes like, oh, this is the reincarnation of this individual. So we're still like stipulating really what happened to the mind or like the spirit. But yeah, it is definitely not a new question, and it is a very interesting one. Kaya.
Okay, so I have a thought that when you first asked I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name for the life of me, and I don't want to try. Um,
You
but
break it
You
Rabbit.
down.
can just call me Ravi for
Ravi,
short.
okay, Ravi.
Yes.
Um, when you first asked, does the mind check out too? My first like response was obviously not, and then I remembered something from class. So I want you to here's a thought experiment, okay? That just came to mind. There are probably millions that are similar to it. Um, if you die, okay, and there are many cases where people have been, quote, dead for 10, 15, 30 minutes, pronounced dead. Their brain was not functioning, they were dead. And then suddenly they're up again, they're totally fine, and nothing about them really has changed. Okay, so based off of what Yusha Did I say it right? Yeah, first try.
Got it.
Based off what you just said, you could argue that they could be symbiotic. They work together, but who is to say that that person who woke up is still the same person? What in what world? Because his brain shut down, it was dead. Usually, most people who have been pronounced dead for a certain period of time, most of them collect brain damage, and that is physical, brain damage. And in some cases, they just don't. And it's weird and it happens. Um, who's to say that that is the same mind that is there? Who is to say it's the same consciousness? We can't know that for sure at all.
Oh, very theoretical.
Ooh.
That's a good point. I never really thought about that one. That's a good point.
Spooky stories now.
I guess the only person who would know would be the person who died, I guess. Right?
Yeah. Or maybe, yeah, I guess the
So
new
like
But
what if
how would they know?
sentient
let's get
and
real
the new
let's get
sentient
real
will know.
let's get real playful here. So then how about every time we go to sleep, are we the same person when we wake up? I'm not playing.
Oh.
No, but I mean it's interesting thought though. It's not necessarily something that's completely out of the blue. I mean there's all kinds of theoretical ideas of this
Um,
like about metaphysics.
yeah, and your mind does change, and your brain also has some like deterioration, so you think differently. Um, but yeah, the only thing, okay, I want to be aware of the time. We are over time. I don't get me on this. Like I can continue. But I also want to be mindful. Do you want to continue a couple minutes more, or should we start like voting on a new topic?
We can maybe start talking about a new topic. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Dylan.
let's deal with that first. And those who want to stick around, you guys are more than welcome to. But if you have something pending, please be sure to finish that first. So let's go ahead and suggest some topics. Leave them in the comments, or just
Blurt them
turn
out.
on the phone and say it.
Just shout them out the top of your lungs.
Yeah.
I need to dash, guys. Great
Thank you.
conversation. Oh,
Yeah.
thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you for participating, rather.
Yes.
Listening to us ramble all the whole meeting,
Yeah.
basically.
Catch up next week.
Okay. So
Okay.
do you guys
So
have any
it's
suggestions?
I mean, it's still metaphysics in a month. Like last, it's gonna be the next one is gonna be the last in that team, and we're gonna have to pick a different team.
How about
So
consciousness? We were talking a lot about consciousness because there's psychological aspects to it. There's obviously scientific, and then there's obviously metaphysics, and then religious aspects to it. So there's many ways we can kind of tackle it.
What about
l- l-
consciousness and this and the sense of belonging?
Ah, okay. I like
Because those beings that are conscious, like move. I mean, trees are also living beings technically. But
yes.
do they have consciousness? And that is why I want to include on top
like
of what you said.
Do they
And
have
technically, they
consciousness?
feel pain.
And how would we be able to know for sure and tell?
Well, they moved over the sun.
So that's cool too, because like, what would they feel? Their roots, and so like, whoa! Imagine what
You
that would
can
feel like.
tell. You can tell whenever they're like sad or not. You can tell how they are. But the Luisa is asking if we could consider to watch Social Dilemma and discuss.
Social. Let me look up the social dilemma.
I think it's on Netflix. I think you
So
should recommend.
is it on Canopy?
I don't know if it is
The
on kind.
social dilemma. I know it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
I know Manzi told us that we can't watch something unless it's on Canopy. Because if we try to screen record Netflix, or I mean, I guess we could have like a homework assignment and have everybody go watch it.
Homework assignment. Look at us.
So,
Putting homework when Nancy's not here. As if we're
I
teachers.
feel like that
now.
would be damaging to my mental
Every-
health.
Everybody go watch Social Dilemma. Well, Excellent. No, but
Yeah,
that'd be cool though.
Luisa is voting for homework to make all of us have a
Smart.
homework on watching Social Dilemma.
I have a group
It's
project.
for
I
our
don't have
benefit.
time.
Let me see. It's
I
on
need to make
Netflix.
sure I'm performing well for my classmates.
Yeah, you have to perform very well because Luisa will be there. She's gonna be a moderator. She will
Hey,
be
can you get
drill
some,
sergeant. Yeah.
All right.
can you get other topics from the previous meeting? I can't seem to find them, to be honest.
Here, I'll start listing the topics. Okay.
Okay.
So
We have consciousness and the sense of belonging,
and then the social dilemma
the social
discussion.
dilemma.
I guess you could say.
Discussion.
And do we have something from the last meeting? Because I know Manzi wants us to give everyone a fair chance.
So, can you guys go check real quick?
Oh, good lord. Ah,
So previous meeting.
MVP. Man.
That was 30.
1, 2, 3. Hey, appreciate everybody that's here, man. Like, everybody's sticking by. We're
okay,
already
so
6 minutes.
we have one that it was human flaws, and then we have dreams, which was
Oh yeah, we had that one too.
That totally wasn't mine. I swear.
I like the
Sure.
was
concept
totally
of
his.
dreams.
I like a couple things about dreams. All right. Well, do you guys have any more suggestions? We got 4.
Let's go with this. So for next meeting, we're not too overcrowded with
Yeah.
ideas from the previous meeting.
So I
We
spelled
usually go with
consciousness.
3, so 4 is good.
Yeah,
I spelled
pretty good.
consciousness wrong, and I'm not gonna lie to y'all by using Google, you know, or whatever it's called. Anyways, oh no.
Wolfram
I don't know.
Alpha?
So it's gonna be in this. This is gonna be in the chat. So type the number you want, and it didn't work. Dang it. Okay, there he goes. 2 looks a little goofy, but 2 is 2, of course.
Are you sure?
Don't put 2.2.
Did 2 have a
Don't put-
child by any chance?
No, it's a clone. Okay.
Smart.
So everybody type in the chat which one you want to do next week. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Once again, guys. for those of
I
you
can't
who-
decide if I want 4 or 1. I'm stuck between those two, to be honest with y'all.
Just select one. As simple as that.
4's winning. Gosh dang it. Look, 4's destroying. All right, I'm going to have to pick one just for the sake of it. Because it's getting wrecked. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 4s, 2 1s. I think it's a pretty safe call. But we'll give a couple more minutes here. Just 1 minute. That's it.
I'm saving my vote. I'm saving my vote.
It's okay because I suggested dreams, so I don't feel like a complete loser.
No, both are very strong topics, to be honest. I'm excited about both of them.
All right, so we got one.
So far we have.
What is the angle we'll be taking on dreams, though? If
So-
we
it was
do
more
dreams.
so where like when we are asleep and not like our goals in life.
We can
It was
kind of make it broad if we want, because like there's interpretation of dreams, like what they mean and what it might mean about you as a person. There's like also the idea of, well, where do we go when we dream, so on and so forth. Many things.
What we discussed when the idea of dreaming was proposed, if I'm not mistaken, Orlando had said not the dreams as not like your life dreams or goals, but as nocturnal dreams, or when you take a nap, you have a dream or something like that. So yeah, even lucid dreams. We even pondered upon the idea of exploring lucid dreaming.
I've had many lucid dreams. I wish they were. I don't know if they're real or not, but I wish they. I hope they are.
That's
I remember one time. So I'm sure you guys have had this dream because according to psychology, many people have. But supposedly, is this dream like I remember where like there was like a devil figure like standing at my door, and it was like dark and I couldn't see him, but I could see the horns or whatever. But then out of nowhere, I started floating and I started flying around my room, and then I made him vanish, and then I was swimming in water.
Was that your dream? Wait,
Yeah,
that was your
no.
dream
That was
last
my-
night?
That
No, no,
that
no, no. That
that
was my lucid dream that I've had most recently.
I
Can
had a
we
lucid
count
dream
that
last night.
have enough?
what is I mean what is your definition of lucid dream though? Because
Lucid dream
We
is
have
mine
like
is that
control.
you're aware that you're dreaming.
Yes.
yes, I have done it that, but in mine I didn't have to have a I mean I have several, but the first one I didn't have to have anyone like looking at my face like oh no. I was just
Well,
kind of
that's
like hey, this is impossible that is
Yep.
true.
That
Which
it's
usually
lucid
is
dreaming.
what happened with me. It's like it's no way. And either like this person is dead, or it's like this is like against nature, and like okay, I'm dreaming, and then I start like going bananas. I start
So I
like
have a question for y'all. So like, do you guys have sleep paralysis as well? Like, so the way it starts for me is like I'm sleeping and I can't move. Like I just cannot move.
okay.
And like I'm
I just
trying
have
not
to
to
say
fall
this.
asleep.
Before,
I,
before,
I
That's
I
the
want to
same
talk
thing.
about it, but this is for next week.
yes, that was our
No, no, let's just talk
But
now.
Just like this
Plus,
is
looks
just
like we got a
but
little bit of competition. Two's getting
I
some
I
steam
have
here.
I have around 10 years without having sleep paralysis.
four. We have
See,
five, four.
see?
I would vote for Dream, but my phone's not allowing me to see the chat to vote for anything, so I'll
Okay,
So
just
so
say
I'm gonna
nothing.
say okay, Isabel is four.
Four. Yeah. So I think four. I think for sure
Four
four
is
as one next week. So
I
topic for
I
next
haven't voted yet. I haven't voted yet. I can be the
week.
changing
It
vote.
doesn't matter.
um for people who
Okay,
uh,
okay.
actually have
One,
sleep
two, three,
paralysis,
four,
I
five,
recommend getting a
six.
weighted blanket, and that actually is supposed to help people with sleep paralysis. Um,
Another tip.
It did help
Apparently,
me a little
you,
bit
I
with
you,
like
you
sleep
mine.
can
paralysis though.
you can move your thumb like your
That's right.
thumb and like
That's
your
what I
foot. That's the way. If you manage the thumb, it's the only it's like similarly one of the few places that you do not have like a sleep paralysis. It's
So
like oop, move the thumb
I
and that's
was
it.
wiggling my fingers. I started wiggling my fingers. I was like, okay, I just gotta wiggle my fingers, and then I'm gonna wake up. And then that's literally what happened. But it's pretty scary. But I think it's kind of fun because the way I see it is like it's kind of this in between dreaming and the real world where I don't want to go to sleep, but at the same time I'm so tired, or it's like I'm kind of like phasing in and out. I can't explain it. It's kind of weird.
yeah, I think it happens a lot more common than people understand or care to admit.
Yeah.
here's something psychology students will find really interesting. 23 years I've been alive. Don't ever recall having a dream. Honestly,
Having a dream, seriously?
never.
Supposedly, accordingly to something, you have so many dreams you just don't remember them.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah.
It's just that's why I said I don't recall having any dreams. That's why I'm not opposed to the idea of being able to dream, but
Interesting.
that's another thing to discuss.
Okay. I
Awesome.
mean, dreams are fun.
So I guess the topic for next week is dreams.
Yay!
Okay,
I
I'm gonna go
will.
down the list here.
Okay. I'm gonna put four just like they won, so gonna be in the winning side of history today.
I hope to see you guys next week. Hopefully, if things aren't really busy for me again.
Hmm. Or
You
you
guys
can
take
just
care.
left us hanging like last week or whatever. I mean,
I was so sad when I figured out it was Wednesday. I was like, I have a meeting today. I'm so excited. And my brother was like, those are on Tuesdays. And I literally just looked at him. I was
Oh,
like, what?
man,
I missed it.
that's hilarious.
I had so much hope. It was just, there was Monday and then Tuesday just didn't exist. And suddenly it was Wednesday. And I was like, oh, well, now I am sad. I was
I'm gonna go
waiting that
down
whole
the
day.
list. I'm gonna say thank you to everyone. Just
dreams. Thank you so much for coming here
thank
to
you for
bearing with us with all our
the episode.
bambling, us talking as if we know too much about life, but we don't know
Thank
anything.
you for coming, Corey. Thank you,
I would like
Catherine.
to thank everyone
Thank you,
on behalf
Gloria. You're
of
leaving.
Nancy,
Thank you, Kaya.
who
Thank you, Alejandro, Marcy,
Oh, it's a
Asher.
personal
I'm sorry if I
bike.
messed your name
Wow.
up. Shao, you're always a regular man. Appreciate you coming. I don't know if I'm gonna say your name wrong, but Zach, or yeah, I think Zach. And
Heck.
then I think I'm saying this gonna say it wrong too. But Twan, if I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Yusha, you're right here, bro. You know, you're.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
T, thanks for coming. Thank you guys so much.
All right, later, Gators.
bye. Thanks everyone for joining. And Professor Menzies sends his thanks as well. I know he's not here. He had some business to take care of.
He's in the spirit.
But
Me too.
In that mind. Oh my god. We're
well,
gonna stop the recording.
according to the laws of um,